Mr. President, after careful consideration, the Libertarian Party has decided not to support the motion. Author and lifelong practical environmentalist Michael Shellenberger has a very different view to the mover of the motion. Schellenberger points out that Working Group 1 of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the group of actual climate scientists who report to the United Nations, do not mention anything like an apocalyptic scenario in their assessment report 6 released last year. Schellenberger goes on to say, quote, "The use of climate science by climate activists and the apocalyptic activists is a kind of disinformation campaign. They are spreading disinformation first and foremost on the notion that climate change is an apocalyptic threat. The corruption of science is occurring at every step. It occurs in the summary for policymakers, and then in the press releases, and then in the statements made about the press releases, and then by the time it gets into the media, it's turned into something absolutely bonkers. The opposite of what the data shows. It's a very clever disinformation campaign by apocalyptic activists, who, if it weren't for climate change, they would have something else to be alarmist about." Schellenberger concludes, quote, "This illiberalism has seen the labelling of any political disagreement as tantamount to Holocaust denial and other tactics that we now associate with cancel culture censorship, a kind of totalitarianism trying to control every aspect of our lives in the name of basically what is an apocalyptic religion," end quote. The mover of the motion claims world disasters are becoming more intense and more frequent. The facts do not back that up, so I ask the mover to not be vague but specific. What type of disasters are occurring more frequently? What studies support this claim? It's all in your imagination. Now we heard about the bushfires a few years ago. Australia's had bushfires like that for millions of years. Since the first fleet arrived, they've happened roughly every 10 or 15 years. It's just standard practice in Australia. The mover of the motion claims, okay, Mr. Speaker, I do have to say that I have a sincere respect for the mover. She is a lifelong frontline activist to protect wilderness areas. I am sympathetic to that cause. I want our remaining wilderness areas to remain protected for millennia to come. But the mover and many others have been misled into thinking she can save the environment by fighting carbon dioxide. No one disputes that carbon dioxide is plant food. For every 1 million bits of atmosphere, there's 400 bits of carbon dioxide. We are meant to believe this tiny trace gas is the atmospheric temperature control switch. There is no correlation between carbon dioxide levels and atmospheric temperature. A decade ago, Robert F. Kennedy was even more passionate about trying to change the weather than the mover. Today, he has concluded it's all a delusion peddled by greedy crony capitalists who are manipulating those with a genuine love of the environment like the mover. The most urgent thing we can do to save the environment is liberation from this anti-science folly around carbon dioxide.